Okay, welcome to our June edition of the CCH2 Data Portal lunch break. And today we're going to be talking about a new and exciting tool in CCH2 and other Symbiota portals called the Datasets tool. And if you're familiar with checklists, it is somewhat similar to checklists, or has kind of a similar idea. But the thing about checklists is that they are saved lists of taxa, whereas data sets are saved lists of occurrences. And occurrences just means specimens or observations, depending on the Symbiota portal that you're in. And data sets can be created in different ways, but what you will most likely create data sets from is search results. So to create a data set, which is a saved list of occurrences, like all of a certain specimen or certain type of specimen, those will be put into a data set from a search. So let me just go ahead and do this live and show you how this works. One moment, please. Okay, so to create a data set in CCH2 or a Symbiota portal, one way to do that is to go into your search collections. Actually, before I go into that, I should say, why would you create a data set? Well, a data set can be used for many different applications. So one way that like the Neon biorepository, which has a bunch of samples, like even soil samples and specimens and things for the National Ecological Observatory Network, is that they use them to package up specimens and observations that have been cited in specific studies. So if you wanted to say, I just want a list of all the occurrences that were used in this one specific analysis, then you could create a data set and link that data set to your citation, or you could cite it. But in any ways, it's packaged up on the site, the Symbiota site. That being said, it's not necessarily a snapshot of the specimens in a place in time, because those specimens will continue to be updated over time. So if you're saying like, this is the exact state of my data at the time of analysis, that will not necessarily be true as time goes on. It's just, that's the identity of all of those specimens in your data set. It can also be used for just curatorial tasks. If you are thinking, oh shoot, there's a certain subset of my data that needs a specific type of cleaning, then you could just create a data set from that, or from those things that you find, and then you hand that data set to maybe a student or a volunteer and say, hey, can you do all of this specific data cleaning task or double checking task on this data set list. So for any instance that you would think that you would need to refer back to a group of specimens, that's what you would use a data set for. And you can iteratively add or take away things from a data set by just managing it right in the datasets interface. Okay, so now back to how to create a data set. So you could just go into a search. If I just search collections, let's say I want to find everything of a specific species in a specific county. So let's just do some Calochortus, Obispoensis, and I want to find it in specifically San Luis Obispo County. I think that might be the only county in which it occurs. So maybe this is not that interesting of a data set.
It is endemic to the county.
Okay, well, I'll find something else. Albus, there we go.
Albus would be a good one.
So let's say I want all of the San Luis Obispo.
Move it to the county.
Yep. Instances of Calochortus albus, then I could just go ahead and do a search, list display. And you might have noticed this button, but not known what it means. But to put things in a data set, there's this button right here that says Dataset Management. And so if you click this button right here, a new set of tools will show up. So first of all, there's going to be a dataset management rectangle here. which allows you to select which data set you're going to add these specimens to. And if you don't have a specific data set yet, you can just click Create New. And then you can select by using the checkboxes which specimens you want to add to your data set. Or if you want to add them more batch or bulk, then you can click all the records on the page and click Add Selected Records to Dataset. Or individually, you could just click a couple and click Add Selected Records to Dataset. Or you can just click Add Complete Query to Dataset. So that's saying I want to add all 140 specimens from this query to my dataset. So if I click this, so I have selected a Create New Dataset. I don't have one already created. I'm just going to do that. Add Complete Query. Then it's going to take me to the Dataset Management interface, and I'll show you how to get to this in a moment. But this is where you can manage the data set from now on and this is where you can look at your list of occurrences. You can access them. You probably couldn't see that, but it popped up and it showed me the individual occurrence. You can remove things from your data set from here. You can export your data set. So let's say I didn't want these ones. I could remove selected occurrences. In general management, you can give it a new name. So let's say Calicortis. You can make your data set publicly visible, which means that if you gave someone a link to it, then someone else could go look at your data set as well. Or you can leave it private. It's private by default. You can add internal notes that nobody else will be able to see. And then you can add an official description here. You can add images, you can add links, etc. I can save here. And then you can also give other users, just like in the checklist management features, you can give certain readers or certain users access. So some people will be able to edit your occurrences and the general management. If they're just like a read and write, I believe that means that they can only edit the occurrences in the list. And if they're read only, that means that they can view the list, even though this visibly, publicly visible box is not checked. Mike, you have a question?
Yeah, Katie, when you export out the data into this new data set, now, is this an independent set of that data that is no longer connected to the original CCH2, or is it somehow tied back? It's got to be independent, right?
No, this
No?
is fully linked back. So when you export the data, you're just getting, it's basically a custom download of the data. All of the information comes directly from the same central database. So in your data set here, you can't edit any of these records unless you have editing privileges. So all you're doing is adding or taking away things from your data set. And that's the part that you have control over.
Okay,
And
because
Mike,
I'm sorry, let me just, hello?
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say real quick, I just created like a data set, but out of our file maker, similar, but I was looking for all of the records that we had that had multiple locations collected per multiple specimens by a collector. So let's say a collector had 47 specimens in one location area. So if you hit one, it fixed them all, right? So what I did is I created a data set for everything that had over 20 plus collections that were associated with that same area. And I GPSed them all. And we actually updated our GPS a whole percentage because we got like over 1,000 done in like a week by doing it that way. But we didn't use CCH2. And I'm trying to think of a way I could use it, because I could see me creating a filter that says all of these records I need your help with, folks. They don't have any GPS. But I can't have people updating and fixing them, because then our snapshot would ruin everything. So I'd have to think of a way of getting the same set of data out there to the world and saying, can you help us? And then somehow logistically get that data back in so that I could update it at the source and then upload it into CCH2 permanently. That would be ideal.
Mhm. And I suggest that we have a discussion about how we want to make that workflow work, because we definitely could set it up such that you just don't update your data until we get those data that were entered in CCH2 back to you. But yeah, the data set feature could be a good way to kind of highlight the ones that you want people to look at.
Okay, yeah, this is great, Katie. Very, very good work. Thanks.
Yeah, one thing I was going to add is you could think about it as just saved searches. You know, like I've done a search and I want to maintain the list of specimens that meet my search criteria, and then they're always there for you. And you can sort of do some curation of that list, and you don't have to constantly be redoing the lists and downloading the results. It basically stores it within the system for you.
Yeah, and it also allows you to manage it alongside other people and provide certain user access, and also provide some metadata, so like a description of what that search actually means.
And I have been saving some of my queries, and that works beautifully. Very good feature. All right.
Great. So how to get to this, once you have a saved search, you might need to go find it eventually. So you can get to that by going to My Profile, and then Occurrence Management. And then down at the bottom, you'll see where it says Miscellaneous Tools. There's one that says Dataset Management. And that's where you'll find a list of all of the data sets that you have created. So here's the one that I just created, and I can manage it here. If anyone had created their own and then shared it with me, this would also be in this interface. And you can also create data sets from here too. So you can click this little plus button, and then you can enter in all the metadata. And once you create it, then it's just going to say, hey, you need to, if you want to add some more occurrences, you just got to go to the search page. And that's exactly how you're going to do it. So this is good for going back to sets of occurrences that you think you're going to repeatedly go back to. I also wanted to note that if you just want to share a search with someone, another way of doing that is, I'm just going to do a search. There's a link, a copy URL to clipboard link. It will probably give you a pretty long URL, but that's also a way of just being like, hey, take a look at this. But if you actually want to go back to it repeatedly and curate that list or cite it in any sort of way, then you would want to make a data set. So again, you just do a search, you click this data set management, you decide which specimens you want to add to your record. Note that since I have data sets here, I could just continue to add them to my pre-existing data sets if I wanted to do multiple queries and add those. So if I could only search for, if I wanted to do 3 very specific searches, I want this species in this county collected by this collector, but I also want to add this species by this county by this other collector, you could put those into one data set. And that could be something that you can't share using a link, but you can share via a data set. All right, any questions?
Yeah, Katie, what did you mean by that it's constantly updated? Because it seems like it's not automatically adding specimens to your list that meet the search criteria, because you had to manually select which ones went into your data set.
So, yeah, what I mean by that is that your data set is not, the specimen data is not static, because the specimen data, all that you're putting into your data set is basically like, this catalog number belongs in my data set. But if anyone in their home database is editing the data associated with that catalog number, then that data is updated. So let's say there was a typo, typos would get changed in your data set moving on. So it's a living, breathing data set.
Katie?
Got it. But records are not going without.
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Katie. So I typically usually go into my profile and I only see the basculars because I don't want to see everything else that's out there. So let's say you're just looking very specifically at your own data initially, UCR, for example, and now you're going to create a data set, a sub data set of that, just so it's clear that, hey, look at this. This is this topic of discussion. So these records exist and Andy can see them or whoever can see them. Is that, so what you do there, if I want people to start editing it, I would just take that very small subset, which already exists in my data already, but I'm just kind of like highlighting it to the world and saying, I need help with these 47 records because whatever. That would be a very good way to use this tool, right? I mean, our biggest problem then is, like I said earlier, just the snapshot ordeal, but this has got a lot of potential to mass the crowdsource solutions and really ramp up the productivity. So
definitely, yeah, that's one of the strengths of using a Symbiota based portal like CCH2 is that you can have multiple people working in it at a time. Much more complicated when you're a snapshot, but there are ways that you can work around that. It's just a bit more complicated and requires a little bookkeeping, basically.
Right,
Katie,
right, Katie, thanks.
Will you show Mike how to do the filter by collection step on the first search page?
Yeah, that's a good point. You can't make a data set from, if you normally go into my profile, occurrence management, and you do a search here, the data set tools are not available via the internal searches. So if you wanted to do a search for your own collection only, then in the search collection step, you would just deselect all the collections and then go to your collection only, search, and then you could do a search that is only within your collection.
Copy, got it.
Any other questions or comments?
Do you guys have a good use case for like how citing a data set would be applicable?
Yeah, let me go find one on the Neon biorepository real quick.
Also, this is pretty cool. I like, this is a cool new feature.
I guess I too, this is sort of off topic, but I wonder if what Mike is looking for is better accomplished through the crowdsourcing feature. And that's maybe a conversation that we could have elsewhere, but that's just thinking about that.
Yeah,
That
it
sounds
depends
good for
on,
future. Yeah.
yeah, depends on what he wants to happen. Okay, so here's an example. The Neon biorepository portal is also a Symbiota portal. And what they have is they've made public a bunch of data sets that were from a specific research project. So they put the citation to the data set, or sorry, to the paper within the data set. And then you can view and download, view the samples, view the list of taxa in the data set from that data set page. I don't know whether they have cited this data set in the actual paper though, so I don't know if there is kind of like the back and forth quite yet.
I have a question, Katie.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you use that tool by going to the map tab and just getting a polygon and doing it that way, saving that?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. And I think you can. Let me go take a look. We'll find this together. So if I just wanted to find all of the Calicornis albus in San Luis Obispo, and I do a search, open search panel. It doesn't look like there is one here.
I was wondering more about just, I want an area, I don't care what's in it, but I just want all the records in my little polygon. Is that?
Yes, because you can do a search like that from the main search. If you go to here, one of these options, you can click this, and you can't see this right now. So let me share my full screen here. So now I could make my polygon and apply. Sorry, my zoom is in the way. Okay, there we go. So now I have my polygon. It's showing up in here, and then I click list display, and it might be really big. Oh, it's not too bad. But then yes, you could add that directly to your data set using the normal data management tools.
Awesome.
Sure. That's great.
That is so cool. I didn't know about that feature either. That's awesome.
There you go. Any other questions or comments?
I was gonna say, I really like your interface. It is a little techy, to be honest, but once you start really working it, you can slam dunk on it, man. It's so fast. And I've been using it a lot on the iPad. I just set up an iPad Pro for Andy, and I loaded it up and I showed him it's the pinching and zooming and knowing what you need to see and ignoring the rest, honestly, that gets the job done and really just cranks the workout. And you know, I like it. It takes there's a little bit of learning curve, but once you've got it down, you can really crank out work and accomplish some stuff on that. So good.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah,
Good job.
it's a work in progress, but it's been pretty good tool so far. It's designed with, you know, the user in mind with some technical limitations. So any other
Yeah.
questions or comments about data sets?
Thank you very much, Katie. This has been a great lunch break.
Yes.